while ago, I had somebody ask in the comments, do people actually ever get grants? And it made me realize that that was such an important question, because let's face it, for the most of us, we probably won't be Ford Fellows, and that can be really disheartening. And we can also potentially internalize that to think we are not smart enough or good enough. But today we are demystifying the grant process so you can better understand what goes into winning grant applications and strategies for you to approach applying to grants to make you more competitive. And first, I want to begin this video with the hard, cold truth. Grants are rigged. And that's because when you think about it, no matter the size of the grant, be it a small or large grant, if it's a popular grant or even a secret grant that you think you found and no one else knows about, grants in general are super competitive. In fact, in general, most grants, any given grant really, could have thousands and thousands of graduate students all applying at the same time. Many grants have very specific eligibility requirements, meaning how and when you are able to apply can create a very small window to prepare and not a lot of room for error. Not to mention, you could be really close one year and then get a completely new reviewing community and then not be in the running the next. In fact, all of these things put together, not to mention that you just may not be a good fit for what the mission of the grant is, can make winning a grant kind of like winning the lottery. But that doesn't mean you will never win. And in fact, implementing certain strategies can help you quickly become more competitive and increase your chances of winning a grant. So one way that grants may feel like they are rigged, or you just feel like you're just never catching a break, is that your research might be just too new or too unique. There is a privilege with staying with the tried and true methods and approaches. And if you're somebody like me, you may have taken your rejections very personally or felt like your research is no good because people aren't responding to them as positively as your cohort mates or as other people in different departments. And oftentimes when we have very new and unique research projects, we feel very proud and we expect everybody to be as impressed with us as we are with ourselves and the work that we are doing. But when it comes down to it, sometimes the newness or the uniqueness of our projects make it hard for reviewing committees to really understand what's going on. And in fact, they may be confused as to how we're doing that research, what even is our research, or why this new approach is important. And so this can be really upsetting at first, but it's not impossible to overcome. In fact, I'm not telling you to completely change your dissertation topic to something that's super traditional or in the norm, but instead I'm encouraging you, or a strong strategy that I'm encouraging you to implement is by focusing on the parts of your research that seem to draw from the more traditional techniques, more traditional theories, and really bring them to the forefront and cater to your reviewing committee. Most reviewing committees are made up of a variety of different professors and faculties from different departments. And so when they're coming from different disciplines, they're coming with their own background knowledge, but also their own lack of knowledge. And so if we start in just talking about all the newness or all the uniqueness of our proposal, of our research, it may quite literally go over their head. So by anchoring our research into more traditional methods, more traditional approaches, and really emphasizing how this helps the field or how this helps you better answer your research question, can help you look and be received by reviewing committees as more prepared, as more competitive, and ultimately increases your chances of being selected. Now, when you're in the writing stage, this could be hard or difficult for you to figure out what are the things to bring to the forefront or what makes sense, because as the actual researchers, of course, our research makes perfect sense to us. So while you are rewriting or thinking about writing your grant application, I also encourage you to start reaching out to people outside of your department, to other graduate students, to faculty across the university to get feedback and hopefully to see what questions they have about your research so you can start to implement those answers in your grant application. Ultimately, the more people people that review it, you will be able to receive more critical questions, more general questions, and guidance to help you craft an application that is making sure it is ticking all the boxes while simultaneously bringing to the forefront the things that you think are important and are necessary for you to succeed as a graduate student and to achieve or realize your research project. The second way that getting grants is rigged, or you may feel like you're not getting a break when you're applying to grants, is that there are just some general basic things that grants should almost always have, and you may not have any clue about them. In fact, I didn't know about these basic things that should be included until I was in my 3rd year of my PhD. And that is straight up because just nobody told me. And so for a lot of people who are winning these really big grants, they probably have, actually, I would say more times than not, they have good mentorship. They have people reviewing their applications and guiding them towards their goal or helping them craft more complete and well-rounded applications. And sometimes this is really hard to fix because you don't actually know if your faculty are good at getting grants. And you may not be able to figure out if you're even good at writing grants until it's too late. But there are some things you can do to make that process a little bit quicker so you can start to get the feedback that you need. The first thing I would suggest is to look around your cohort or your department and see what graduate students are winning the most grants, and then try to see who are their mentors. If they seem to have a pattern and it's, these same 3 people who work under this one professor, you should do everything you can to start working with that professor, even if it's just in an informal manner. Another thing that I highly suggest that you do is to make sure you're utilizing resources on campus. If you have a grants and fellowship office, if you have a career or writing center, go to these spaces and make sure you're having constant conversation with these people, because oftentimes if they're not expert faculty that are doing this work, they are graduate students who have won and been hired in these positions to help people also win grants. And so this could be a great way to start to get the nitty-gritty details on what is missing, what should be included, and just how to improve your grant application. Another thing that I would highly suggest is that you check out my past video where I talk about the things I wish I knew when I was writing my grants, so you can make sure you include those small details and not get rejected like I did. And I'll be sure to put that video in the description and the end screen, so make sure you wait to the end of this video so you can watch that next. Another thing to be aware of is that some reviewing committees or some grants in general have their own mission or goals that may not be explicit, or they could even be some type of biases between certain types of projects versus other types of projects. And if you're somebody who has no idea what these goals, missions, or biases are, then you could be submitting your heart and your soul in these grant applications and still get rejected year after year. And this can not only be disheartening, but it can also make you feel like your project isn't good enough. And that is almost never the case. So it's important to make sure that you are really doing some background investigation on the grants that you are applying to, so you can make sure you are highlighting or bringing to the forefront the most important things that would help the reviewing committee see your application as favorable. And so ways that you can do this background information or background research is, one, obviously go to the website and see over the past years what type of projects do they fund more often than not. And if they just have a list of recipients or a list of winners, then yes, you're probably going to have to go and individually search for each person on the website and see what their research is generally about. Now, this approach is actually really good for a variety of reasons. One, you get an idea of who they're trying to fund and how closely aligned you are with them. But if you go and research the individuals themselves, go see what their CV looks like, go see if they have in their bios specific awards, specific publications, and trainings and things like that, you're also able to kind of match yourself up against them to see, do you have a CV that's similar or comparable or competitive with what they're going on? Now, this doesn't mean to not apply if they seem to be totally amazing, because sometimes some people are just totally amazing and that's okay. But it does help you think about what are the things you should bring to the forefront. If you see that every winner that has ever happened in the history of life did a summer studying abroad and can speak 2 languages, then you can either start learning a second language or recognize you may not be that competitive for that application. And so by gaining this information, by gaining this knowledge, you will increase your chances of being competitive because you are tailoring your your grant to be specific to the mission, goals, desires, biases of this application review team. Another way you can go about doing this, and this is actually how I win many of my grants, is by looking through the people who are winning, see who is most closely aligned to my research or aligned to my methods or methodologies, and then I reach out to them. Now, every time I suggest this, I always say, make sure when you're reaching out to people, you're not entitled, you're not pushy, you're not overdoing it, and instead you're approaching them with humility, patience, and you're not blowing up their email. Because there's nothing more annoying than getting 100,000 emails from the same person asking them to do a favor for them. You know, it's just not, it's not very polite. But if you politely reach out, say, hi, I'm applying to this grant. I saw you were a recipient. I am also studying these things, or I also invest in these methodologies or these methods. I would love to talk to you about how I can make my application more competitive. I would love to meet with you to talk about things the reviewing committee is interested in. Or maybe if you're even lucky, you can say, I would love if you feel comfortable to see if you would share your application with me so I can see what they're looking for. Now, again, it's all based off what you're familiar with or comfortable with, and you may want to meet with them a few times before asking to see their application, because sometimes people are a little bit weird about that. But when it comes down to it, by reaching out to winners and seeing what their advice is, again, it can help you get just a little leg up and be more competitive. Now, these steps are simple and pretty straightforward, but if you had no idea about them, it would be easy to continuously be rejected from grants and feel like getting grants is totally rigged, because in a way it kinda is. And that's why knowing the behind hidden curriculum of applying to grants is so important, which is why I would suggest you head to my grad funding playlist, where it'll talk more about how to find grants, how to apply grants, and strategies to make sure you are writing the strongest grant possible. If you found at least 2 things useful, definitely hit the thumbs up. Your support helps a small YouTuber like me continue to grow, and your likes and comments helps YouTube share this video with other people who need it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for engaging, and I will see you next week.